So, this is the first time I have spoken um, in a public arena about this particular topic. So, I have actually written down what I wanted to say. I'm going to not necessarily read what I've written, instead, let my words come from my heart, and as I feel God leads me. So, my name is Amanda, for those who haven't watched any of my videos in the past. I want to share with you a story of hope, of strength, and of love. There is a warning I would like to put out there that some of what, maybe a lot of what I'm about to share, may trigger some people. There is some pain, some struggle, some trauma, but even when I say that, the final word always was and always will be that of the one who allowed the pain that I'm going to talk about to touch my life. He is the one who brought me to today, where together he and I can use my experiences to help others find their way, which I definitely pray will be the outcome. So I'm sitting here today not as a victim of childhood sexual trauma and childhood sexual grooming and the molestation that followed, and then eventually marital sexual assault. But I am a survivor, and this is my story. So I was born in 1982 in New Zealand to parents who loved myself and my younger brother of 3 years very much. They did the best that they could to provide us with the upbringing that we had. My dad worked, my mum was a stay-at-home mum, and like I said, my parents were very loving, very caring. They did the best that they could to teach my brother right from wrong, and how to be decent people. And what happened to myself is not their fault. So I don't know how old I was when I was first sexually molested. I know I was between the age of 8 and 10. The person who did this was an older cousin, and he slowly gained my trust and the trust of my parents in order to be able to look after my brother and I. The cousin then moved on to grooming me until I no longer felt that I could tell anybody what he was doing to my young body. I do not want to give anyone any false ideas. I would never do that. He never raped me, but he did touch my body in places and asked me to do things that felt wrong, and certainly raised a lot of feelings of fear within me. I don't know how old I was when he stopped doing what he was doing, but I think I was around 11 years old. When I was 15 years old, an uncle on the other side of my family began touching me without my permission, and making inappropriate comments about my body. He was far more adventurous and far more willing to take the risk of getting caught. He would generally touch me and make inappropriate comments about my body within earshot or close vicinity to my parents. But he did not get caught. He was careful not to get caught. I do remember him telling me when I was maybe 16 or 17 that I was not the only one, that he was also doing this to somebody with blonde hair. I thought she might have been a cousin. I'm not 100% sure. I never found out who she was. When I was 17, I remember telling my uncle, after he touched my breasts, that if he didn't stop, I would tell my parents. He laughed at me and said to me, "No, you won't." My parents were in the next room. He and I were standing in the bathroom. I had been washing my hands, and he had also done the same thing when he was about to exit. When I entered, the toilet was in the next room, so I was just washing my hands up in the bathroom. Of course, he was right. I didn't tell anybody right away. I then married somebody when I was 19. I met somebody when I was 19, married him when I was 21. He is now my ex-husband. I have remarried. And my ex-husband forced me on at least one occasion to have sex with him. Now, I know that we're married, but my body is my body, and no still means no if you're married. So that's a little bit of what I've gone through. So one symptom, I suppose you could say, of childhood sexual trauma is a lack of memory of what has happened. This is a very well-known coping technique that the brain can perform or undertake in order to protect the person or the child that is going through what they're going through, so they don't have to relive a traumatic event. And it doesn't have to be sexual trauma. It can be any traumatic event, anything that is overwhelming or confronting or something that the brain just cannot comprehend. Quite often, particularly for children, but not only children, the mind will just erase it and do a reset, and everything is buried deep down somewhere. So while I can recall very clearly and in very vivid detail what my uncle did to me, and I never forgot it, what my cousin did was completely buried. I had no memory of it, no recollection of it, until I was 20 years old. I was at a funeral and of a family member, and I was standing at a fence line overlooking some grassy paddocks, and all the repressed memories of what my cousin had done to me came flooding back all in a rush. It was very unexpected, and I literally physically felt like someone had punched me in the stomach, and I actually bent over double, and it was like I couldn't breathe. It was a very physical response to very repressed memories, and I didn't really know what to do with that at the time, so I just brushed it off and just got on with my life as best as I could. I was due to get married, like I said before, when I was 21, so I just left it alone. I spent the next 16 years believing that the memories of what had happened between my cousin and I was all a part of my imagination, that I made it all up. I spent a long time carefully asking questions of my parents, my grandmother, my brother, even the cousin himself, about what had happened all those years ago. Nobody was able to confirm any of those memories, and so I just let it go. I just tried to let it go. It was when I was it was in 2018, so I was 35, that somebody very close to me blindsided me out of the blue, and confirmed all of the memories and told me that they were actually there when a lot of the stuff happened with my cousin. And not only that, but there was more that he had seen that I did not, and I still don't remember. So that was extremely confronting. It was, I was stunned and left not just really struggling, but unable to process that information. Not only did he tell me that what had happened to me was real, he told me that he was also a victim, not of the cousin, but of his brother. So, to be honest, I wondered what was wrong with me. That what had I done to make someone, or three people actually, to do this to someone, that they said that they cared about and loved. I thought I was in the wrong, and that I had done something to invite the abuse. So back when I was 17, I told my mother about what I was enduring, or what was happening with me, with myself and my uncle. I told her only because I could no longer avoid him, and no matter how hard I tried. And sadly, she told me she didn't believe me. I don't know why. We haven't really ever spoken about that. So I don't know why she didn't believe me, but what my cousin had taught me to believe, that nobody would believe me, had come true. And it was also what my uncle taunted me with. So my fears had come to be realized. That nobody would believe me if I told them what was happening to me. I felt like I had no voice. I felt like I had no rights, or anyone to help me. It was a very lonely and damaging thing to believe and to feel. So when I left my first husband in New Zealand, I actually ran away from everyone and from everything, and let them believe whatever they wanted to believe. I really didn't care about anything anymore. I had been married for less than a year. I was 21. I had left my relationship when I was 19. The relationship that I had with my Lord and my Savior. My ex-husband did not believe in God. So I made a choice at the age of 19 to not be in a relationship with God anymore, because I chose my ex-husband over him. I was 12 when I started going to church, and 15 when I became a Christian. So I've been a Christian for about 4 years. My parents didn't know where I was after I left my first husband. My extended family and my friends did not know where I was. I moved from my marital home to Auckland in New Zealand, because I lived in New Zealand at the time. And soon after that, I moved to Australia, where I have lived since I was 22. So I moved here in 2005. It took me another 8 years to stop running from the past, from myself, from reality, and from God. So I came to a point just before my 30th birthday, so I've been living in Australia 8 years, when I realized that I was broken and I felt useless, hopeless, and exhausted. I really had come to the end of myself and the end of my sanity. My mind was a mess. I suffered from terrible depression. And I had a history of self-harming with alcohol, drugs, parties, broken relationships. I would have also been homeless on a number of occasions had it not been for for the kindness of friends and sometimes even strangers. There have been many times over all of those years that I very badly wanted to die. And I don't know, it's a strange feeling. It's like I never had the ability or desire or strength to really do something horrible or drastic or catastrophic to end my life. But there is a thing that I've recently heard of called passive suicide, where you wouldn't really mind if you went to sleep and never woke up, or if you were involved in a horrific car accident that was not of your own fault and you didn't survive. That's what I felt. That's what I wanted. I wanted to go to sleep and never wake up. I wanted to be in a horrific car accident and not come out of it. I didn't care if somebody murdered me, for example. That's probably an extreme example, but I just wanted to die very badly. I hated myself because I didn't have the strength to end my life. When I was living in Sydney, I randomly met somebody in a shop on a weekend, and they said they were a Christian. I immediately asked them where they went to church, what time it started, where it was, how do I get there, what's it like. I went to church that weekend. I know the All Blacks were playing on the TV, so I skipped the All Blacks and I went to church. In that church service, I felt God take my heart in his hand and wrap his arms around my very broken spirit. The knowledge that he still loved me and wanted me as broken as I felt I was a very soothing balm to my broken heart. I danced around the edges of his promises for a couple more months before finally submitting to him and letting him back into my life, such as it was. What happened next? It saved me. I was put in touch through that church with a Christian counsellor who was worth her weight in gold, and she knows who she is. She's a phenomenal person, and I probably owe her my life. So together, along with Jesus, we went back in time and we dismantled my life, the trauma, the pain, the suffering. Another woman I met several years later told me that she had a vision of me, and that God, during that time period of going through the counselling and the dealing with the trauma, had actually given me a coat that was very like Joseph's in the Old Testament, the coat of many colours. And he gave me that coat. God did. God gave me that coat because he knew that I needed something to wrap around myself while God removed my dirty, tattered, stained, disgusting rags that I had wrapped around myself to keep myself protected and safe, trying to keep life from hurting me and people from hurting me anymore, while he mended them for me. So I had the coat of Joseph to keep myself warm, to be kept warm by God while he fixed my own tattered garments. It was a beautiful image that I still hold close to my heart, even more than 10 years later. So the counsellor helped me in many ways, in many more ways than I think she realizes. She gave me a safe place to be angry, to cry, to push against God, to rage at him, to lean into him, and to discover who I am and whom I was meant to be, and finally to begin to heal. At this time, I had the memories of what my cousin had done to me, but no confirmation. But despite that, I was still able to begin to process and deal with some of that trauma that my cousin had inflicted, even though I had no confirmation. So I was 30 years old when I told my dad about my uncle, and he believed me, as did my mother, which was very, very nice. Did I feel heard and validated? At the time, yes, I did. When I had the confirmation of what my cousin had done when I was 35 or 36, I told both of my parents immediately, and they believed me. Did I feel heard and validated? Yes, I did. I also felt irritated, annoyed, betrayed, and disappointed. Eventually, I felt disheartened and almost angry. For the past 6 years, when the topic of the abuse has been raised, their questions have been, why didn't you tell us? Were we such bad parents that you felt you couldn't tell us? What else? Were we such bad parents? We always told you and your brother you could tell us anything. And for me, the most upsetting question was, how do you think we feel? Think about how hurt we are. Now, I'm not heartless. I have a soul. I know they have been hurt, that they weren't told sooner. And that they may feel like they're at fault for not protecting me. I understand that now. I'm not a parent. I was a nanny for a long time, 11 years, and I would probably strangle the life out of anyone who did that to a child in my care. I'm extremely protective, partly because, I think mostly because of what I've gone through. I have told my parents time and time again that it is not their fault, and that I don't blame them for anything that's happened to me. I have given them reading material and websites to help them understand about predatory grooming, around childhood sexual abuse, and parents on seeking healing as parents of a child who has been sexually molested or sexually assaulted. I have tried to nurture them on the road to their healing, all while carrying my pain and hurt and allowing God to heal my wounded inner child. They have not once, in my working memory, ever asked me how I felt during and after what happened. I actually spoke to my dad about this yesterday, because I sent him the websites and the information, and I said to him the same thing I said to my mother. I will send you the information. If you want to read it and then ask me questions, I welcome the questions. If you choose not to read it, I will never discuss this topic with you again. Because, like I said to my dad, in 2018, when I told him and my mum about my cousin, and they asked those questions that I just mentioned, I was literally minutes away from overdosing on very strong medication and ending my life. And I felt like I was expected to prop them up emotionally and mentally while I was standing on a pile of rubble that was my life. And I couldn't do that. So for that reason, I have had to explain to them that I will not speak of it with them again unless they try to take some ownership of their own healing, and give me the space and the safety to actually discuss what I've gone through with them and how I feel about it. So at the beginning of this, I said I didn't want this story to be about hurt, despair, and darkness. I meant that. I used to live in those places and those emotions, but God, in His infinite kindness, has brought me out to live in the light. Sure, I have bad days where I struggle with depression, and I struggle with anxiety, and I struggle with hypervigilance and the flashback memories and triggers and things like that. But the light that Jesus has given me outshines all of the evil deeds that have been done. Despite all I have gone through, I marvel, I'm stunned, I'm surprised, I'm shocked, all of those things, that I'm still here and that I'm able to tell this story, my story. I am still living and breathing right here in this moment. Not only that, but I'm not a drug addict or an alcoholic. I am not a prostitute. I'm not living homeless on the streets. I am not a prostitute. Sorry. I'm not covered in the physical scars of self-harm. If anybody watching this is any of those things, please know I don't judge you. I don't think any less of you. Whatever happened to you, for this to happen, my heart goes out to you, because it just does. I mean, trauma sucks. You know, it can impact your life in every area, and my heart breaks for you if you're at any of those places or any of those things because of trauma. I am also not dead on the inside like I used to be. Sure, I'm a strong woman, very strong woman. And, you know, it could be thought that because of my strength, I have been able to overcome immense adversity and trauma and difficulties, and the hardships I've endured. So I might be a strong woman, but this is not why I'm here today telling you my story. I'm here because the creator of the universe saved my life. He put people into my life to help me to learn to heal. And he gave me my first stable home and my first stable job in my entire life a few months before I returned to him. So I didn't need to worry about where I was going to live, how I was going to support myself, how I was going to afford to eat. He gave me very godly friends and people to offer wise counsel as I began to heal. He gave me a counselor who knew what I felt, so I could feel the empathy that I needed, so I felt heard and understood. Most of all, he gave me himself as a safe haven for my broken, shattered, wounded soul. This is harder than I thought it was going to be. I started my journey of healing in 2012. It has been hard. There are times I didn't think I was going to make it through. In fact, I'm still healing. I think it will be a lifelong process of discovering the little girl within me and making sure she is safe and protected. I have come a very long way, and I am thankful to God for what he has done in my life, and I know my journey is not over. I very strongly believe that, and this might be a broad statement, I'm not entirely sure, it might be hard for people to hear, it might be completely incorrect, I don't know what everyone out there believes, but this is what I believe in my heart, that childhood sexual trauma and sexual trauma at any age is a life sentence for the person who experiences it. While my wounds have healed, the scars are still there. And so my journey of healing, I don't think will ever be complete. It's an ongoing process. And part of that process includes forgiveness. And that's a really big word. And I understand that not everyone is at that point. I choose to forgive because 1, I'm forgiven, and 2, I don't want any of those men or males that have been in my life to continue to hold power over me. I want to be free and live in freedom. So sorry, I digressed, but I just wanted to say that. So there's one last image that I want to leave you with. When I was broken and just starting to rebuild my relationship with God, at the same time I started the counseling, and I described myself to my therapist in this way. I said to her, I can see myself as a broken clay pot sitting on a top shelf in the shadows, pushed right to the back far corner, and I'm covered in dust, and I'm cracked, and I'm full of holes, and I'm useless for any job that anyone, even God, could possibly have in mind for me. And I use that example because that's how I saw me. That's how I saw myself, as useless, broken, beyond repair, of no use at all, just sitting there doing nothing. The abuse I had gone through had left me that way. All those things I just described. In 2014, after 18 months of a lot of intensive work in therapy and outside of therapy with all my journaling, I gave myself just a little upgrade. I saw myself a little differently, and so I now saw myself as a little bit more put together. Someone had seen me sitting up on that shelf, covered in dust, full of holes, cracked, useless, ugly, and taken me down off that shelf. And they gave me a little dust off and cleaned me up a little bit. And they'd taken some leftover clay that they just had lying around, and they filled in all the gaps and the holes. So I wasn't all cracked and full of gaps and holes anymore. And then they put me on the bottom shelf where I could be seen and I could be used. Sure, I would no longer leak if somebody put a liquid in me or somebody used me for something, but I was nothing special to look at. I was useful, but not the first choice to use. If you had somebody special coming over, or if you had guests coming around, you wouldn't use me. You wouldn't choose to use me. You'd use something much more pretty, much more decorative, much nicer to look at. I was serviceable, but not overly attractive as a pot, I mean. In 2016, so 2 years after the upgrade, I was talking to a very trusted friend on the phone, and I told her the image that I've just shared, from beginning to end, broken and then serviceable. And suddenly God dropped this picture in my mind, and I could see it so clearly, and I was so moved by it that I began to quietly cry, tears just streaming down my cheeks. And I told my friend what I could see as I saw it, and I could see that the ugly but not so useless clay vessel or pot or vase or whatever you want to call it had been transformed into something breathtaking. I saw a blue and white porcelain vase, so incredibly intricate in design, and realized it was God showing me how he saw me. And when I looked closer at the vase, when I looked closer at the vase, I noticed the cracks where the pain, the hurt, the trauma, all those cracks and holes had been. But rather than making me look awful, those cracks were filled with the purest of gold. And I truly believed then, and I still believe it now, that God was telling me that even damaged or wounded or broken, he could put me back together to be not only helpful, but to have a beauty that I could only have because of him. The gold holding me together to be whole was God himself. He, in my life, he truly had become the potter, and I was the clay being molded and held in his loving hands. This is a story, an image, an experience that I've shared with so many people. It has brought me incredible comfort. It has given me feelings of hope, of joy, of fulfillment, of just incredulous. I'm gobsmacked to think that God could take me from what I was to what I've become. It blows my mind. I still have trouble understanding it or believing it. It's incredible. So after everything I've been through, I have long held on to the hope that one day I could stand in front of people and share my story. I have prayed and I have asked God to give me the strength to do this, so that I can help someone. If my pain, my story can help just one person to know that they are not alone in their pain, that they know God can see them and their hurt, that I can offer them hope, that healing and restoration is possible, then what I've been through, it can be used for good. It's nothing. God wastes nothing. You're not a waste of space. I'm not a waste of space. My experiences won't be wasted, and neither will yours. It is possible to, like I said before, it is possible to forgive the unforgivable, what feels like the unforgivable. That, the trauma of sexual, and I've said this before, the trauma of childhood sexual abuse is a life sentence. But it doesn't have to define you. It doesn't define me. I will not let it. God will not allow it to define me, because I am his child. I am his daughter, and that is what defines me. And if you are a son or a daughter of God, and if you don't even know him yet, you are still his, and you are precious to him. And what has happened to you does not define you. He defines you. Someone told me once when I was 17 years old, so just a little while ago, he was in a band, a Christian band, and they came to the town I was living in, and I thought he was kind of cute, and so I got a little scrap of paper and from somewhere, and I asked him for his autograph. And he wrote this little message on this little corner scrap piece of paper that I then thought was a little bit ridiculous because I was 17. I was a grown woman. I was mature. I wasn't a child anymore. And I thought, what a silly thing to write. But like, whatever. So I kept that little piece of paper for years. And it wasn't until, 17, I was when I got that bit of paper, and I put it inside my Bible, and then it got moved into a journal, and then I don't know where it ended up, probably back into a Bible or something. And then for years and years, I carried this piece of paper around with me. And every now and again, I would pull it out and have a look at it and think, that's a bit strange. I still think that's a bit strange, this thing that he'd written. And eventually it ended up in my jewelry box. And probably about 2 years ago, I pulled out this little piece of paper. And all of a sudden, I realized what it meant. It just made complete sense to me. And I had to laugh because it's something that only God could orchestrate. I feel almost embarrassed that it took me so long to figure it out. But obviously, I was meant to figure it out at the ripe old age of 38 and not, not 17, when I was so convinced I was so mature. Anyway, this little piece of paper from this man who knew nothing about me, and I'm sure he'd forgotten all about me. It said, "It's never too late to have a happy childhood." And I just find myself laughing about it because it seemed so ridiculous at the time. It also said, "P.S. You have a wonderful smile." So that was kind of nice. But I love your smile, I think he said. And then he put, "From Paulie." And it's actually really funny because my best friend, just going off on a sidetrack, my best friend lives far away from me, and she was down here visiting myself and my husband in January. And I showed her this piece of paper, and I told her the story behind it. And my friends, she doesn't go to church. I'm not really sure of her where she stands in regards to belief in God. But I showed her this little piece of paper, and she said, "Have you tried to find him?" And I'm like, "Oh, briefly," because I just briefly, like maybe a year or so ago. And she looked him up, and she found him straight away. So I ended up getting his WhatsApp number off his Facebook page, and I messaged him about this little thing that he written for me, and he remembers going to the town. He doesn't really remember me, but he said he was quite touched that I'd reached out and explained to him that what he had written, even after all those years, had actually impacted my life. Because at the age of 39 years old, when I realized the significance of what he'd written, I don't know if it was a prophecy or word of encouragement. I'm not 100% sure. I'm not into trying to figure that out. But when he'd written when I was 17 years old in that tiny, dirty, grubby, folded up piece of paper, "It's never too late to have a happy childhood," I realized that I'm now living mine. I'm living my happy childhood at the age of almost 42. I'm having a blast. I love life. I mean, yeah, of course, still have life pressures, and I work as an oncology nurse and palliative care. So, life, I still have challenges. I still struggle with stuff just like everyone else does. But I have a joy in my heart like a child because God has fixed me up. He's mended the holes and mended the gaps and mended my heart. So, Paulie, if you ever see this, thanks. I know it took me a long time to figure it out, but thank you. So, I'm married to a wonderful Christian man. I've been married to him it'll be 3 years this August. He understands my past. There's some stuff I have not told him, and I will not tell him because my trauma can hurt him, and I don't want that. And like I mentioned, I've got an incredible career as a nurse. which I love. I love my job. It can be challenging, but I love my job. So the last thing I want to say is, if you have gone through abuse, neglect, or difficult times, please know that there is help out there. If you Google I'm depressed, or there's in Australia here, there's Lifeline. You can ring them anytime. There's the kids helpline. You can ring them. There's, if you're a child or a young person, there's Brave Hearts. There's Blue Knot, spelled with KNOT. There are so many websites out there to help men and women who have gone through trauma. Reach out to a counselor. Yes, it costs money. I was blessed. The counselor that I had from 2012 to 2014, she was a psychology student, so it didn't cost me anything. Monetary wise, it cost me a little bit with my sanity and my mental health, but it came out in the wash. Everything's okay now, but the money you put into your healing, to your recovery, Christian or not, doesn't matter what faith you are, it will help you. It may get harder before it gets easier, but I can't advocate enough or encourage enough for people who are struggling to go and get help, because it saves lives. And just find somebody you can trust. You build a rapport. If you're a guy, find a guy. If you're a girl, find a girl. We can just relate to each other, gender-wise, just so much better. If you're a Christian and you need prayer, reach out to a Christian friend that you trust. Reach out to your pastor. A lot of churches these days have counselors. Don't hide in the darkness. Only pain and anger and hurt and the devil hide in darkness. Step out into the light and let God surround you as you begin to heal. No matter what it is that you're facing, whether it's, like I said, sexual trauma or domestic violence or anything, hard times, it is vital, it is so essential to find one person you can talk to, one person you can trust. Be careful who you choose. Be wise in who you choose. Counselors they have to be confidential. If you're choosing a friend, be careful who you choose. I've made wrong choices in the past, and they didn't want to understand, and that created more trauma and more pain. So just be careful with who you choose. If you are a young person and you're listening to this and somebody is hurting you or touching you or doing things to you that you don't want done, choose someone to tell. And if the first person doesn't believe you, keep going. Don't stop like I did. I told my mother and she didn't believe me, and I didn't try and tell anybody else. And if I had, the abuse may have stopped sooner. In fact, I'm sure it would have. So I mentioned Brave Hearts before. They teach the hand philosophy. So if you choose 5 people in your life, like it could be a mum, it could be an aunt, it could be a grandparent, it could be someone at church or someone at school, a teacher. 4 people may not believe you, but the 5th one, they'll believe you. Don't give up trying to find help and to find safety. It is out there. Don't stop until you find that one person who will listen to you and believe you and help you get the help that you need to be safe and to be cared for. Don't stop telling people until you find someone. So I want to thank you all for watching this. I hope that my story helps one person, just one. I've known for a very long time that what I've gone through will not be wasted. I just hope that the desire I have in my heart to help people, I hope I come to see that, whether it's online or in person. I didn't mean for this to go so long, but yeah, I just want you guys to know, and girls, I want you all to know that there's hope and healing possible. And if you are a Christian, or if you're seeking somebody to believe in, or if you're questioning your salvation, or wondering what happens after we die, there are so many churches around. And in today's world, we've got Google. There's churches online all the time. Thank you, COVID, for that. So thank you for listening. If you'd like to comment or reach out, I'm just a comment away. That's it. Take care. God bless. And I'm here if you want to talk.